Testing, testing. Hello, hello. How are you? Hello, hello. How are you? It is me, your boy, Ronick. La 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 bo- da- da- bo- 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 oh, oh. Da- 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 ba- da- do. Hey, hey, hey. Alright, up to the episode. Later. Hey, Karen, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for accepting my invitation to come on my show. It's a pleasure to meet you again.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
I always like to start with start with the guest childhood since that's like what it mainly focuses on. What if you could start me off like that?
Okay. So I grew up in Texas and I graduated from high school in 1979. So things were a lot different from what you have right now. It was pretty normal though. It was a smaller town, so I was able to do a lot of different things. I was on the dance team, I was in theater, I was a member in several clubs. So it was just a really normal kind of upbringing. I have two younger sisters and siblings are always fun
Mm-hmm.
to deal with, stealing each other's clothes and, we would go to school together and so we had similar circles of friends. It was just very normal.
What kind of person do you think you were back like let's just say high school or young adult, I guess?
I am very similar to how I am now in that I was involved with a lot of things and I had a, a small group of friends
Mm-hmm.
that I felt comfortable with, but I had a large group of people that we would do things with. Um, you have that small group of people that you really trust, and I'm still that way. I'm still that
Mm-hmm.
way in a lot of ways. But when it came to the school, it was a little bit different. There was a lot more freedoms than what there are right now. We could ride our bikes wherever we wanted to go. We would play outside until the street lights came on without my mother even knowing where we were really, because she was like, just come home when it gets dark, and those kind of things. And we played in the neighborhood. We played baseball and we played kickball and we had neighborhood friends that we would hang out with and do things with. And I think that now it, it, in today's society, I think children are a little more protected, and I think that parents are a little more aware of where their children are most of the time. So I really felt like we had a lot of freedoms that aren't necessarily available to kids these days.
Do you think that was more like a good thing or more like it's like a bad kind of can go both ways, I guess?
I don't think it's really good or bad, to tell you the truth. For us, it was good, but we didn't know any different. For my own children, I have two sons. I think that they were fine with the situation where it was the way it was. I was aware of where they were, but I still tried to give them freedom to do things that they wanted to do. I think that now it's more organized. Both my boys were in very, very organized sports. And we were involved in a lot of different organized activities, whereas the activities I was involved in when I was a kid were not organized.
What kind of family did you come from?
Just your typical mom, dad, two younger sisters. My grandparents were living, both sets, until I went to college. My grandfather, when my grandfathers passed away when I was in middle school, but for the most part, all of my other grandparents were living. So in that respect, I feel like I was very, very lucky. Um, Uh, so it was, and I had aunts and uncles, and we associated, did things with the extended family. Not really like it is in Iowa when you go to a softball game or a basketball game and all the aunts and uncles and all the grandparents are there watching the child do whatever they're doing. It was more just my parents and my sisters who were there. The extended family members had things that they were doing, and they
Yeah,
were
of
busy
course.
with those things. So
Yeah.
it was mostly immediate family who saw the things that I was doing.
Like, of course, you said like nobody really like, at least not like a close eye, like as parents do more and more now. But would you say like they were strict, more lenient? Like, what kind of like a life did you grow up with?
Okay, so yeah, that's a good question. I was the oldest, so I think that my parents were strict with me. Um, I had to maintain a certain GPA. I had curfews. I had rules that were a little bit stricter than my sisters.
Hmm.
My middle sister, it was a little bit easier, and then my younger sister, it was quite a bit easier. She was 5 years younger than I was. So from I think that I like to say, and I think I've said this to my parents, I was the experiment where they figured out the rules for raising their children.
It's kind of like a pancake thing, you know, like the first one, and then that goes on and on.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know you know what I'm
exactly.
talking about. When did media you think kind of come into place? Like, your family might like I might bring that up maybe a little bit, but for now, I'd be interested in talking about like because as we all know, you work at PBS. It's like the king and queen of media, for at least in my mind. When did become making content become like a thing for you?
So I am not necessarily a content creator in the same respect as you are with
Hmm.
broadcasting, podcasting, those kind of things.
Hmm.
My content creation is more in theater. So I've created plays, three of which are published um, with dramatic publishing. So that is more my line of content creation. I'm familiar with theater. I'm familiar with how the stage works. I've done many, many different jobs in theater, so I understand what goes into a play. I did not get into broadcasting until I got a position with Iowa PBS,
Hmm.
and actually, the position I have is administrative assistant, and what that is a support position, one that I do enjoy doing. And so for me, it's more about helping the people who do create. I make sure that they have their travel done properly. I make sure that their calendars are accurate. That if they have a Zoom meeting, that that's on their calendar. I do those kind of things. So I consider myself more a support person and not actually a content creation person up until I got my job. So I'll have been with Iowa PBS for 25 years now.
I believe I saw it
And
was like 2001 or something along the
it
lines of
was,
that.
yeah, it was 2001. And prior to that, I had been an administrative assistant. I had done some other jobs, but for the most part, they've been support positions. So there was an opening at Iowa PBS, and in the engineering department as the administrative assistant to the director of engineering. And I applied to the position. I knew his wife, and we felt after conversations that we would be a good fit. I'm very detail oriented. I'm one of those people that I look at a situation, problem solving, and I know that I it needs to be steps one, two, three, four, and five. And I can do all five steps, without
Mhm.
too much thought. And so it complemented his type of thinking, and he felt like I was the right person for the position.
I'll talk about like PBS and like the way it's going currently, like in probably in maybe like a later chunk from now. But right now, I'm curious with like kind of how we were talking about you joining PBS. Like, what was it like in the very beginning? That had been at least pretty different considering that was like almost 30 years ago. What would you say it was like for you?
So the biggest change in media between 2001 and now
Mhm.
is how viewers receive media. You know, back in 2001, it was television, and you could record your program and watch it later, but there was no streaming, and YouTube was not a thing at all. So everything was on your television, and it was pretty much appointment television. Appointment television is where you sit down and you make a plan to watch a program.
It's like
You know,
cable.
uh, yeah, kind of like cable. So you know from the guide that a program will air at a certain time, and so you would make sure that you were home at that time, or you would set your recorder, your
Yeah.
DVR, so that you could watch it, right?
Hmm.
So that's the biggest change. At that time, they're talking about, you know, at some point we'll be able to watch television on our computers, and we'll watch television on our phones, and we'll watch television in our cars, you know, all of these different ways of viewing media. And in the beginning, there were a lot of people in broadcasting that were saying, no, no one's ever going to watch a program on their phone. They would never, it's too small of a screen. Why would you trade in something that small for something as large as a television? And so that is probably the biggest change. And then the type of media, because back in those days, everything was really clean, it was professional, it was, you know, top quality. And now, with the viewing habits, people are watching things that are a little bit rougher, that are personal, that are one on one. You know, similar to podcasts, they want to see that reality. They want to see our reaction. You know, they don't want it as clean and polished.
Say like it's cleaner and now it's a little like at least a little less clean. Like, would you say that is a good thing? Or
It's not that people are used to it. I think that they're interested in it. Having that little piece of, like, I'm looking into your life.
Mhm.
I'm seeing what your life is like. And if it's all clean and sharp and perfect, that doesn't feel real, you
Mhm.
know? I think it's just that little bit of, you know, edginess to it. And I really do think that viewers want to see something that's real. I guess that's the best way I can describe it.
Like the idea of the Kardashians, like they're like this big hit, but then like people want to see their real inside life.
Something like that. But, you know, the funny thing is that as what we've learned from things like Keeping Up the Kardashians and some of the other um, reality shows and things like that, is that there's a lot of that is more scripted than what people think.
How do you mean?
So you have an idea of what you're going to be talking about. You have an idea. So if you're watching the Kardashians, they may have already decided they're going to talk about X, Y, and Z, or they're going to talk about this problem in front of the cameras or something like that. So it's a little bit more. Do you know what scripted improv is like?
Yeah, so basically, like I mean, so it's basically just you're improving it, but like you have at least like a set of like topics you're gonna like you're gonna go after.
Right, right.
That's kind of what reality is kind of becoming to, at least in like most reality TV shows, probably.
Yeah, I think that some of the reality. I think that people have become wise to how reality television is produced and created. And so I think that to some extent that's falling to the wayside or isn't as popular as it once was.
Like as you mentioned yourself, you were kind of you were an actress in your past, and are you still doing that?
Yeah, I still act. I still write. I finished 2 plays this last year, and I finished my first screenplay. So, I'm more comfortable in, theater genre than I am in writing in theater genre than I am in, screenwriting, because I know theater, and so that's an easier genre for me. I feel like I took a chance on writing a screenplay this time. I just wanted to try something different, and it really, I think it did me good because I was out of my comfort zone and I was pushing on buttons that I hadn't pushed before, and I just think it was really good for my creative juices.
From like when I was doing research over you, like a bunch of you've done like I was honestly kind of surprised. You did a bunch of plays such as like girls weekend choices, prologue, and a murder for Christmas. Like I can go on. There were at least a few more that I saw, but like when did stage plays become a thing, or like are you more on the actor side?
Now, actually, more on the writing side. So I wrote Girls Weekend 2, and I just finished Girls Weekend 3. And we're hoping to have we know that Girls Weekend 3 is going to be produced in Ireland in April of 2027. And we're looking for a theater to produce it in Iowa at this point in time. So I also completed Movie in a Dead Body, which is another comedy. I focus on female centric farces, which is something that isn't done very often. Women are normally secondary characters in farces, but in the plays that I write, they are primary. They do the physical humor, they do all the funny lines and things like that. The men aren't necessarily secondary. It's very much a team uh, type of play, but the women are the primary characters in my plays. I wanted to create something where I could see women of different ages being on the stage in primary comedic roles. I wasn't happy with what I was seeing for women in my age group at that time. I wrote my first play when I was 49. And, mostly the parts that were available to women in community theater were either mom roles or a crazy aunt role or, just the ingenue, the goofy, the attractive ingenue. And I've aged out of ingenue roles, so I was looking for something in my age group that had at least a little meat to it. So that's when I wrote Girls Weekend. Um, Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, keep interrupting you, but I was gonna just ask, like, would you? I don't want to be rude, but how in retrospect, like, if we're looking at the differences, how much younger were you at the time? I mean, like, are you now?
So I've been writing for 15 years now. So
Since then?
yeah, since then.
Okay.
So I wrote my first play when I was 49, and and I'm 64 right now.
You said you had a new play coming up. Like, when? Could you explain it to me in the audience?
Sure. So I have Movie and a Dead Body, which is about 4 women, and they're all retired. So they're all 65 and above. And they live in a retirement community. 3 of them are dating the same man, and they know it, and they're all okay with it. And one of them accidentally kills him. So they she puts him she has him in a duffel bag and she brings him to the movie night. And while she's in explaining to her friends what has happened, one of her other friends mistakenly believes that the duffel bag is her donation to the church and has the church take the duffel bag, and they don't know which church they took it to. So then they have to find the duffel bag so that they can find their person and call the police and and turn themselves in. Other things happen so that and the person who is in the duffel bag ends up not being dead, but while they're looking for him, they find another dead body. And so it's just a lot of doors closing, shutting, mistaken identities, all kinds of things. So that's the basic premise of that show.
And to be clear, it's like and you only write stage plays. This isn't like a film you're developing at the
No,
moment.
no, no, that's not a film. No.
I do think it would be a good. It would take like at least a good TV show or movie or something like that. So, but I do think it's a good idea.
Yeah, well, sometimes a stage idea can develop into a movie idea. It's
Yeah.
just if somebody wants to do that, that's great. That would be great.
Well, it's out in the open for now people to see if they want.
There you
But
go.
we talked about like you becoming an administrative assistant, but like, how did you like? If you could just like bring that me up to speed again, like how did you like going into like building like stage plays turn into like working calendars and making sure everybody's on like top of their feet?
Well, it's okay. So on top of acting, I've also stage managed. I've worked backstage. I've done lights. I've done sound. I've done a multitude of things in the theater, and it's all you have to be on your toes, and it's all very detail based. So, I think that my skills as an administrative assistant were helpful in being able to put all those pieces together. And then from putting all those pieces together, that's when I started creating plays. So, writing plays, because you have to be able to think about how items move across the stage and how they're going to change their clothes and giving them enough time so they can change the clothes. It's all very important to the overall production of the show.
This is more like I guess an off like screen question. I can keep it in, but whatever. But I was wondering, like, you know how people, like everybody, it takes like you like gotta move fast to like change clothing and everything. How fast do people actually have to go? Because like obviously they're behind the curtain, we can't really see them or anything. We can maybe hear them, but that's it. Like, what's the time? For like a average.
I've done costumes before, and I've been an assistant with changing people from one costume to another costume. And sometimes you have a lot of time, which you're really happy to have. But there have been times when I think we've made a really fast change in about 30 seconds.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Is
You have
out
to know,
yeah.
you really have to know what you're doing. And it does take practice to hit that mark so that you get the costume change, you change them out of one costume, or you're adding pieces, and then they're prepared to go back on the stage.
Like, of course it's just like obviously you probably of course it's like you know what you're doing, you've been rehearsing this for a while, but like how at least for the 30-second mark, I'm actually curious, how does that even go down? Like, I assume you it's not just the t-shirt and like you would have to do your makeup or something like that, wouldn't you?
You don't have to redo makeup usually.
Okay.
There have been times when I've had to add a mustache or a beard piece. Usually it's the costume designer's responsibility to make sure that all the pieces work well so that you can make that fast a change. And I've worked with Angie over the Playhouse. She's amazing. So she has designed costumes so that I can take off one costume and put on another costume, or just add a couple of pieces where you might add a vest, a jacket, and a hat, so that the costume is changed enough and you're leaving on the pants and the shirt. There have been times when we have a little bit more time and we've changed them completely out of one costume and into another costume. One of the things about making a fast change like that is laying it out properly. So I use a chair a lot of times, and I have the pieces in the right position. So sometimes you want to put them inside out, or sometimes you want to stack them a certain way. So all they have to do is put their arms in or put their feet in, into something, and then it goes directly into their shoe. Um, and I I use the chair to hang those pieces on there in a certain order, so I know what order that I'm going to be putting them on.
Do you have like a favorite play you've done?
um, I Let me think. Um, I did uh, Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, and that is probably my most favorite. Um, my Yeah, I would say that one's one of my first most favorite. I've done, Sound of Music 3 times, and I got to do Les Mis when the Playhouse did Les Mis, and that was wonderful.
Those are like probably your top three plays you've done.
Yeah.
What makes them so special? Like you don't have to walk me through it, but like, is there like an element to them?
Well, Gentleman's Guide was super complicated. I can't even remember how many costume changes I did for that show, but it was a lot, so many. It was unbelievable. Les Mis, it was just the costumes themselves. They were wonderful. Sound of Music is one of my favorite musicals, although I don't want to do it again, but it's one of my favorite musicals. And being around those children and the Von Trapp family and the camaraderie and making all that type of musical was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Was acting and like and producing like stage plays and like were these kind of things like obviously you discussed how like production, at least not like mo- movie production, that's not like your thing, but like was like acting and like producing stage plays, was that kind of your thing as a child? Because like everybody, I had like for speaking for myself, I had like 100 things I wanted to do. I wanted to be a cowboy, a space cowboy, adding everything on and on. But like, was there anything like a spark for you as a child or young teenager or whatever?
I think that I saw people on television and wanted to be like them. Sure, that was something that I would have liked to have pursued, but you know, um, when I did not do a play. I did my first play, school play, when I was 11, and then there wasn't really a community theater that I could be involved with, not like we have now. So, and it was more when I was growing up, it was more about you have to do something that will support yourself. You have to do something that will make sure you have money and that you'll be able to have food and a roof over your head and you'll have security. And part of that comes from parents who grew up in the Depression. My parents had very little, and it was very difficult for them growing up, both of them for growing up. And then when I was a little girl, there was a serious recession, which made things very, very difficult also. So I think that that was one of the fears that my parents had and they instilled in me. So something creative was not going to be something that they would support me in pursuing. I could do it as a hobby, but not as a career. And um, and so business is a good career. whereas acting and writing is a nice thing to think about, but it doesn't happen to people like me.
Obviously you work in PBS, that's the business, of course. But like, you wouldn't say you do maybe like both as like a job or some, or like a side gig at most?
Well, my writing is a side gig. I get paid for my writing. I like I said, I have 3 published plays and probably a 4th coming up. Every time that is produced, I receive money from dramatic publishing for that. It's not something I can live on, but it is a side gig. It does get me quite a bit of money over the course of a year.
So it brings you kind of like a, you know, it brings you at least that equal, somewhat some happiness, at least so you can semi live out your dream. Is that basically what I'm getting?
I would say that being an administrative assistant makes me happy also. Um, it's just different. It allows me to being a playwright allows me to be creative, whereas being an administrative assistant allows me to stretch my detail muscle, the
Yeah.
one that likes things organized and without any chaos.
And were you ever considering other like stations other than PBS? And why haven't you?
No, I haven't. PBS is like working with an amazing team of people. I was going to say it's like working with family, but it really isn't. Um, because even though we're close,
Hmm.
it's like one of the best teams that you could work with. People give and they give of their time and they're so proud of the things that they're creating, and to be involved with something. And anytime you say something to anyone, I work for Iowa PBS, immediately they say, "Oh, I love PBS. I love Iowa PBS. I saw blah 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 and I watch it all the time." And to be involved with something where people are proud of the work you do is always rewarding.
Yeah, PBS has always been like of course as a child I only really cared about like, you know, what was on like a children's station like Arthur and you know whatnot. But besides that, like growing up, at least kind of admiring it more. It's always been like a nice station, and so plus the internship I've met a lot of nice people. So
Mhm.
there have been there are definitely nice qualities about it. But you're not saying that just because you're on screen. You actually believe like everything's pretty nice there.
Oh, I 100% that. I think that, yeah, I've had other jobs, jobs that not with other television stations or anything like that, but I did work for a radio station for a short period of time as a front desk person. It was okay. So I've had a lot of jobs in the past, and this is the only one that I've wanted to stay with for 25 years.
I looked it up. It aired like 56 years ago, and like
Mhm.
with that being 3 generations of humans who probably have watched it, like people have grown up with it. The kids station, I grew up with it. Like, do you adapt or die basically? I guys are feeling with like the Trump like defunding you guys and all that.
Well, he's defunded CPB. He hasn't directly defunded Iowa PBS. And yes, that does create some challenges. But I think that the people that we have in place right now are can meet those challenges. I think that they have good heads and they understand the situation, and they know that it's not going to be easy, but they're ready to meet those challenges.
I have this thing where every guest gets 15 seconds to share out a social, website, literally anything they want. 3, 2, go.
Hi, I'm Karen Schaeffer, and I just want to say take a look at my Karen Schaeffer Plays Facebook page. You'll see a lot of the stuff
You're
that I
done.
do.